The distinction between a foyer or entry and a hallway is crucial for determining the proper placement of electrical receptacles according to the National Electrical Code, specifically Section 210.52 APA. To understand this, let's first define what these spaces are. A foyer is a small, often open area at the entrance to a building or room. An entry is a passage or space leading into a building or room. A hallway is a narrow passageway connecting different rooms in a building. The National Electrical Code, in Section 210.52 ATWO, dictates receptacle requirements. Every wall space 2 feet or more in width and accessible from a standing position shall have a receptacle outlet or outlets located within 6 feet of the floor and not more than 12 feet apart. This code section is important for safety and convenience, ensuring that occupants have easy access to electrical power without needing to run extension cords across walkways. The application of this code to foyers and entries depends on how these spaces are used and their characteristics. Foyers and entries can sometimes be considered hallways if they primarily function as narrow passageways connecting different rooms. However, if a foyer or entry serves as more than just a passageway and acts as a functional space within the dwelling, such as a waiting area or seating area, it is generally not considered a hallway. In such cases, the receptacle requirements of Section 210.52 ATWO would apply. Let's consider a specific example. Imagine a foyer or entry area that measures 10 feet by 10 feet. This space includes a staircase and open spaces that lead to the dining room and living room. Given these features, this foyer or entry area serves as more than just a simple passageway. It functions as an integral part of the home's layout, connecting various living spaces. Therefore, this area would not be considered a hallway. Instead, it would require receptacles within the wall spaces next to the front door, as mandated by Section 210.52 ATWO. To reiterate, the determination of whether a foyer or entry is considered a hallway hinges on its specific function and characteristics. If the space serves as a functional area within the dwelling, it is not treated as a hallway. This means that receptacles must be installed within the wall spaces that are accessible from a standing position, following the guidelines in the National Electrical Code. Remember that the primary goal of these regulations is to ensure electrical safety and accessibility within residential spaces. Therefore, it is essential to carefully evaluate the function of each space to determine the appropriate receptacle placement. When in doubt, it's always best to consult with a qualified electrician to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and standards. Understanding these nuances is critical for electricians and homeowners alike to ensure both safety and compliance. The National Electrical Code is not just a set of rules, it is a comprehensive guide to safe electrical installations. Now let's consider the specific requirements of Section 210.52 ATWO in more detail. The 2-foot rule refers to the minimum width of a wall space that requires a receptacle. If a wall space is 2 feet or more in width, it must have a receptacle outlet. This measurement is typically taken horizontally along the wall. The phrase accessible from a standing position is also important. It means that the receptacle must be easily reachable by someone standing upright. This eliminates the need to bend down or reach awkwardly to access the outlet. The requirement that receptacles be located within 6 feet of the floor ensures that they are easily accessible. The 12-foot spacing requirement means that receptacles should not be placed more than 12 feet apart along a wall. This ensures that there are sufficient outlets available to meet the needs of the occupants. Now let's consider some additional factors that may influence receptacle placement in foyers and entries. The presence of furniture, such as tables or chairs, may affect the placement of receptacles. If furniture is likely to block access to a receptacle, it may be necessary to relocate the outlet. The location of doors and windows can also influence receptacle placement. Receptacles should be placed so that they are not obstructed by doors or windows. The presence of decorative elements such as artwork or mirrors may also affect receptacle placement. Receptacles should be placed so that they do not detract from the overall aesthetics of the space. In some cases, it may be necessary to install additional receptacles to meet the needs of the occupants. For example, if the foyer or entry is used as a home office, it may be necessary to install additional receptacles to power computers, printers, and other electronic devices. The National Electrical Code also addresses the type of receptacles that are required in certain locations. For example, ground fault circuit interrupter, also known as GFCI, protection is required for receptacles located in bathrooms, kitchens, and other wet locations. A SI protection or arc fault circuit interrupter is often required for receptacles located in bedrooms and other living areas. These safety devices help to prevent electrical shocks and fires. It's also important to consider the voltage and amperage requirements of the appliances and devices that will be plugged into the receptacles. The standard voltage in most residential settings in the United States is 120 volts. However, some appliances, such as electric stoves and clothes dryers, require 240 volts. The amperage rating of the receptacle must be sufficient to handle the current draw of the appliances and devices that will be plugged into it. It is essential to consult with a qualified electrician to determine the appropriate receptacle type and amperage rating for each location. Furthermore, it is important to ensure that the wiring is properly grounded. Grounding provides a path for electricity to flow safely back to the source in the event of a fault. Proper grounding helps to prevent electrical shocks and fires. The National Electrical Code specifies the requirements for grounding electrical systems. Now let's discuss some common mistakes that are made when installing receptacles in foyers and entries. One common mistake is failing to comply with the 2-foot rule. This can result in receptacles being placed too far apart, making it difficult to access electrical power. Another common mistake is failing to provide GFCI protection in wet locations. This can create a risk of electrical shock. Another mistake is failing to properly ground the wiring. This can create a risk of electrical shock and fire. It is essential to avoid these mistakes by carefully following the National Electrical Code and consulting with a qualified electrician. Proper planning is essential for ensuring that receptacles are placed in the correct locations and that the electrical system is safe and reliable. Before beginning any electrical work, it is important to create a detailed plan that includes the location of all receptacles, the type of receptacles to be installed, and the wiring to be used. The plan should also include a list of all materials and equipment that will be needed. It is also important to obtain all necessary permits before beginning any electrical work. Permits are required for most electrical work, and they help to ensure that the work is done safely and in compliance with the National Electrical Code. In addition to the National Electrical Code, there may be local codes and regulations that apply to electrical work. It is important to check with your local building department to determine what codes and regulations are in effect in your area. Working with electricity can be dangerous, so it is essential to take precautions to protect yourself from electrical shock. Always turn off the power to the circuit before working on any electrical wiring. Use insulated tools and wear rubber gloves to protect yourself from electrical shock. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, it is best to hire a qualified electrician. A qualified electrician has the knowledge and experience to perform electrical work safely and in compliance with the National Electrical Code. In conclusion, determining whether a foyer entry is considered a hallway for receptacle placement depends on its function and characteristics. If the space serves as a functional area within the dwelling, it is not treated as a hallway, and receptacles must be installed according to National Electrical Code Section 210.52 ATWR. Always prioritize safety and consult with a qualified electrician when in doubt. Consider the specific requirements of each space, including the presence of furniture, doors, windows, and decorative elements. Ensure that receptacles are properly grounded and that GFCI and FSI protection is provided where required. By following these guidelines, you can ensure that your electrical system is safe, reliable, and compliant with all applicable codes and standards. Remember that the National Electrical Code is a living document that is constantly updated to reflect new technologies and best practices. It is important to stay informed about the latest changes to the code to ensure that your electrical work is always up to date. Finally, always remember that electrical work should only be performed by qualified individuals who have the necessary knowledge, skills, and experience. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, it is best to hire a qualified electrician to do the work for you. And as a reminder, Section 210.52 ATWO is a key component for ensuring electrical safety in dwellings. Let's look at some additional scenarios where this code applies. Consider a scenario where the foyer or entry is designed as a mudroom with built-in benches and storage. In this case, the area clearly functions as more than just a passageway, so receptacles would be required along any wall space that is 2 feet or greater in width. Or imagine a grand foyer with a seating area, artwork displays, and a console table. This type of foyer serves as a welcoming space and an extension of the living area. Therefore, the receptacle requirements would apply to all accessible wall spaces. Now consider a very small entry that is essentially just a doorway leading directly into a living room. In this scenario, it may be argued that the entry is simply a passageway and not a functional space. However, it is still important to consider the width of any wall spaces and the potential for furniture placement. Even in a small entry, it may be necessary to install a receptacle to accommodate a table, lamp, or other small appliance. It is also important to consider the future needs of the occupants. Even if a space is not currently used as a functional area, it may be in the future. Therefore, it is always best to err on the side of caution and install receptacles in accordance with the National Electrical Code. Furthermore, it is essential to document all electrical work that is performed. This documentation should include the location of all receptacles, the type of receptacles that were installed, and the wiring that was used. This documentation can be helpful for future maintenance and repairs. It is also important to keep a copy of the electrical permit and inspection report. These documents provide proof that the electrical work was performed in compliance with the National Electrical Code. Remember, compliance with the National Electrical Code is not just a matter of following the rules. It is about ensuring the safety of yourself, your family, and your property. By taking the time to understand the code and to perform electrical work properly, you can help to prevent electrical shocks, fires, and other hazards. And finally, always remember that electricity is a powerful force that should be treated with respect. If you are not sure how to perform a particular electrical task, it is best to consult with a qualified electrician. The National Electrical Code is updated regularly, so it is important to stay informed of the latest changes. These changes can affect the way that electrical work is performed, so it is important to be aware of them. Continuing education courses are a great way to stay up to date on the latest changes to the National Electrical Code. These courses can provide you with the knowledge and skills that you need to perform electrical work safely and in compliance with the code. The National Electrical Code also provides guidance on the selection of electrical equipment. It is important to select equipment that is appropriate for the intended use and that is listed by a recognized testing laboratory. Listed equipment has been tested and certified to meet safety standards. The National Electrical Code also provides guidance on the installation of electrical equipment. It is important to follow the manufacturer's instructions when installing electrical equipment. Failure to follow the manufacturer's instructions can void the warranty and can create a safety hazard. And remember, when considering the distance of 6 feet and 12 feet, it is not about where you place the outlet. It must be that you should not have to go any more than 6 feet along the wall from any point to get to an outlet, so you may need more than one outlet to satisfy the code.